All right, we're up. This is the Our Town with Troy By. So Brian Robinson's here. He is a success coach, a business coach, a life skills coach, if you will, all under that umbrella. So let's do this first, Brian.
Okay.
Let's start at getting certified as a life skills coach.
Yeah.
Let's start there because I think is that the only kind of certification required? And if you could talk about that. And then what portion of your business does that apply? And then are there other portions of your business where no certification is required and,
Right.
and it's just a matter of finding people that need your help?
Yeah. So actually no certification is actually required
Okay.
to coach. There's no regulations, not regulated. I will say, and when I went and got certified, I got certified as a certified life strategy coach or something like that.
Okay.
And the reason I went with that one is because I was dialed into my gifting after years and years of being in different environments and having the feedback from people that I was helping and the urge that I had for helping people. I'm like, well, you know what? Let me go get this life strategies certification. Now, since then, I actually have coached several people on being coaches.
Okay.
I actually have a new program that I'm going to be releasing here probably beginning of next year.
So like a train the trainer model?
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And it's really, it's just bringing people on the inside, letting them see how I coach and my process and systems and things like that. But to answer your question, there's really not a certification for it. But what I've coached people on here recently is, in the last couple of years is find your niche and then go get a certification that will allow you to be excellent in that niche or the opportunity to be excellent in that niche.
Got it.
Yeah.
So you've the one thing I've said this about several guests. It's always uplifting for me when I do research on a guest. Some of it is just in pictures, right?
Yeah.
If we pull up your Instagram, and we can actually do that right now. You are a very avid poster. Obviously when you're in business for yourself, right, that's going to happen. But that's a lot of time and energy. Yeah. But you kind of go through this, and it'll update. And there's a lot of aspects to this just in picture. And then of course you have your own podcast. They're usually 5 to 15 minutes.
Right.
And it's just kind of on a topic.
Yeah.
Oh, which leads me to I'm going to ask you a question.
Okay.
Elevator time.
Yes.
I'm ready. Are you? Let's elevate.
Let's go.
That's how you started your episode,
That's
right?
how I started, yes. Elevators, are you ready? I'm ready.
I was listening to several while I was running on the Bradford Creek Trail.
Thank you.
And I was happy. I was listening to one of those where it was, I think, kind of like, 10 ways to stay motivated. Mm-hmm. In there is exercise, eat well, get outside, fresh air, take deep breaths, things like that.
Right.
And I was happy because I'm like, man, I'm running, I'm exercising, nice. I'm outside.
Yeah.
And, some of that's also if you have something bad happens, you kind of step away.
Right.
And I was evaluating in my own mind, how do I do? As you went through that checklist of like 10 things.
Yeah.
How do I do?
Right.
In order to stay positive, stay motivated, right? Stay out of the negative.
Right.
Right. And those are powerful things. And I think that, so kind of going back, your success comes through like life, like life's lessons, life's teachings.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think it's very difficult for, let's say, a younger person, maybe in high school, college, to offer advice or be a life skills coach because they just really haven't lived through the ups and downs and the struggles, the good times, the bad times, just life's experiences, right? That then ultimately, like you're saying, you don't necessarily have to have a certification, but like life has trained you. Right. And you draw on those experiences. Yes, you were in the military. You were a good student. You did a lot of things, civically. And now you're in this position to help people and a lot of them are men. Is it basically just men, right?
Yeah. So I focus on men because that's what I know best.
Yeah.
Right. Is because I am one.
Yeah.
And there's some things that we go through that others just don't understand. And I've been through pretty much all of that. And so I just want to help men walk through that.
Right.
Not counseling, but taking the steps forward.
Now, I know if I was to ask you, I think your grandmother was a huge influence on you. And
Yes.
even in a post, you mentioned that she was kind of a coach for you.
Yes.
But did you have a mentor or a coach outside of your grandma growing up? Or at what point did that happen?
Growing up, I would say, no, I don't think I did. I didn't understand the power of it at the time. And as I was thinking about knowing that we had this on the calendar, there's a episode that you did, and I saw a clip. I first saw the clip on Instagram, and I think I commented, "Man, this is good stuff." And you were talking about the absence of a dad.
Oh, right.
Yeah. And so even this morning, I was thinking, I'm like, man, I didn't have my dad wasn't around for a large part of my life, and I think I was like 4 years old when him and my mom, it didn't work out, and I didn't see him again until you spent a lot of time with him until probably 8 years.
Really?
So I was like 12, and then we get close, and he passes away within a year of that. And so, I really didn't have I had an uncle who was really in my life. He was, I guess, he was instrumental, make sure I stayed in the lanes, so there was accountability there, but I didn't really have a dad in my life, and here I am coaching men. Do you mind if I go back to talking about? Okay,
absolutely. It's your episode, man.
Thank you. I do want to say to young people who want to be coaches, right?
Yeah.
You really just have to be a chapter ahead, and I didn't make that up. You can probably see other coaches say that, other gurus say that, but it's true. If you're one chapter ahead and you got somebody a chapter behind you, and they're trying to walk to be a chapter in the chapter you're in, then you can help them. So a lot of times age doesn't matter.
That's
with
true.
that. Yeah. So I do want to encourage people who might be younger thinking that I can't do this. And I want to encourage them that if you're a chapter ahead of, imagine how you were 6 months ago or a year ago or something like that. Can you help the you from 6 months ago or a year ago? And if the answer is yes, do it. And maybe that's your niche to go do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So did you have a chance to counsel other kids? Did you have that opportunity like in high school or junior high?
I did, and I'm in my 40s, right? So, living a lot of life and going to a lot of places and being military and things like that, sometimes you forget. And you got to take a look back and kind of like looking back at your resume, right?
Yeah.
And looking back, I think I posted a picture of my high school.
Yeah.
Yeah, just all the things I was in high school.
I was going to pull that up.
Yeah. And
Here it is.
there's one thing in there called SOTA, Students Organized for Development Attitudes. So I was in high school at the time, so we would go down to the middle schools and we would talk to the middle school kids or help coach the middle school kids on, why they should try to do what's right.
Like a peer counseling type thing?
Yes.
Here it is. I got it.
Yeah.
Now let me make this a little bit bigger. Well, that's a little bit
So
smaller.
even in this picture, I'm the same height I am now, 6'5".
You're
but of
6'5"
course-
there?
Yeah, I'm like 185 pounds there.
So you were, FBLA president,
Future Business Leaders of America.
played football, guidance committee,
Yeah,
homecoming king. Look at that. Was that a shock to you?
it was.
Was it?
Yeah, won that. I wasn't going to go, and the teacher who was sponsoring said, "You have to go."
Yeah,
And I'm
because you're
like,
going to win.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't want to go there. She was like, "You have to be there." So I figured it out. I was also prom king, which this was published after the prom. That was a shock also.
Wow. Look at you.
Yeah,
Most likely to succeed? Was that a superlative you got to?
it was.
Okay.
Yeah.
Peer tutoring. There's the soda thing later. SCA president, Spirit Club, Varsity Club. I mean, this is a dream resume,
Yeah,
right? And actually, ultimately, you went to Liberty University.
right.
But
So what people don't know is a lot of this is the side effect of me trying to escape from some things, pressures in the neighborhood and
yeah,
and it's like, hey, if I'm not in a neighborhood and getting pressured to do things, to participate in things that are not legal, then like what else can I do to not be there? And I started getting involved in things at school so that I didn't have to go home and be in those environments.
Did you get in trouble kind of at least once and that scared you straight or almost in trouble?
Yeah, I've been in some trouble.
Yeah.
Yes, been in some trouble.
So that was something that you use as a self-motivation to say, yeah, I don't want to be this guy.
Right. And my dad had some trouble. He got in some trouble. And his mom, my grandmother's still alive, so I definitely want to respect her. But there was some, there were some situations that even with me and my dad that I was in at a young age. We were both arrested, and at 4 years old, and so seeing that and seeing what happened with that, even at a young age,
Yeah.
I was, I kind of wanted to be away from that type of thing the best I could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got in some trouble, right? I may have been, no one really knows this. I kind of may have been arrested when I was 15 for just stuff that, and I will tell, I have said this over and over, like 15 is a tough age for a boy because you're a freshman in high school. Once you get into high school, the girls kind of want to start hanging out with the guys that have cars.
Right.
And that's not freshmen. It's usually like sophomore, junior, right? And you just kind of like, there's this parting of ways where at least where I grew up, my experience, like middle school, you're all tight, and then you kind of hit high school, and then, you just kind of start separating.
Absolutely.
And then you're kind of stuck with your fellow 15-year-old, buddies.
Yeah.
Sleeping over. Now, it's probably, this is different time. This is like the early 90s, but now everyone's got alarms, and it might be really hard to sneak out of a house. But
Right.
But there's that temptation. There's that peer pressure, right?
Yes.
And, my buddies and I got mixed up in some trouble, and for each of us, it was we're not doing that.
Right.
And we started getting really frustrated with friends of ours who kept like looking for trouble. And let's say there's some of them who had spent some time in jail, and then they get out, and it's like, okay, well, like now's your chance to clean up and move on with your life. And then they don't. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
Like, we all have an opportunity with the choices we make
Absolutely.
to not do that.
Right.
And not hang out with those people.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said, 15 is a tough age.
It's a tough age.
And your brain isn't fully developed at the time. You got hormone surging, right?
Yeah.
Hormone surging.
Yeah.
You're trying to figure it out, and so I think we might be around the same age.
I'm almost 48.
Okay. I just turned 48.
Did you?
Yeah.
I kind of figured we were about the same age.
Yeah. On the 15th.
There you go.
Yeah.
October. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm coming up in November.
Awesome. What day?
24th.
24th.
Yep.
That's a Friday this year?
It is.
Nice.
Yeah. Sometimes it falls on Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Which is nice.
Yeah.
It was really nice when I was younger because it would like the uncle or aunt that I wouldn't see that often. You kind of guilt them into giving you at least $20. Like, we're celebrating his birthday too. Oh crap, and they got tricked. So I got a few more gifts when it falls on Thanksgiving.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah. It tells me a little bit about your personality. You didn't mind sharing it with a turkey.
No, I didn't mind. And then, of course, back then, I was a huge Redskins fan. Yeah. And every now and then they play the Cowboys on Thanksgiving. And, back then I didn't worry about my weight. So I was pounding the pumpkin pie and the apple pie. And, I love Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Turkey bowls and the
awesome.
like, right? Actually, I remember Dion. Gosh, when Dion was playing for the 49ers, I think we had a turkey bowl. It was probably one of the best. We never did that as a family. Typically I do turkey bowls with other people or church group.
Yeah.
But for some reason it just kind of came together with those that were in town, and we had like a really fun, memorable game. And I was trying not to pick off too many passes, but when I did, I was high stepping like Dion, because he was like, he was in his prime.
Oh yeah. Yeah. He would say he's still in his prime.
He's still in his prime. We had missing toes and everything.
That's right.
What do you make of that? I'm stoked for Colorado. I just hope that they can, they started off on a bang.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if you followed it at all.
I follow some. Yeah. Busy season for me right now. And
sure.
Yeah. But I'm glad, Coach Prime is he's got some spotlight on him right now.
Yeah.
I just hope that more, the good keeps coming from it. For them
So
to see good.
Your typical client, what are there to a T, are there certain areas that all of us are struggling with?
Yeah, yeah. I if you look at my hero section of my webpage, I help men who aspire for something greater,
Mm-hmm.
aspire for something more. We all have that, right? We all have something in our life that we want.
Do me a favor, pull that boom a little bit
Okay.
closer to you.
Yeah.
Just pull on it.
Yep. Like this.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Let's get that a little closer.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So we all have something
Perfect.
that we want, something more in some area of our life, if not the whole life, right? And so it's one of those things where my clients get to define what that is, and I help them find find clarity in that, and then take focused action, right? So we're taking the right steps. Sometimes they're small steps, sometimes they're a little bit bigger steps, sometimes they're giant steps, but usually small steps.
Are they typically men who are going through the midlife crisis and they're looking for help, and or, hey man, I've got so much more of my life to live.
Right.
Maybe it's not even a crisis. It's just the reality of like, man, I'm in my 40s, but I might be working another 20 or 25 years.
You said typically, and I thought that I was going to have more of those, but I do have some, but I have different all ages.
Really?
My youngest client right now is 17, and my oldest client is like 55, 56.
Okay.
Like that. Yeah. Yeah.
So the 17-year-old just wants wants to succeed in life.
Yes. He wants to succeed in life. And I'm honored to have the opportunity to sit with him and kind of guide him towards what appropriate success or proper success for his life can look like.
Mm-hmm.
Not just there's a lot of different ways you could categorize someone's outlook. Two ways that I look at is achievement based or lifestyle based, right? So there's a lot of people when they look at success, they're like, I want the million dollars or the $2 million, $3 million, right? And it's like, that might be okay for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's your life, but what are you going to do when you get it? What is it, and what would you do to get it, right? And then what I'm sure a lot of people would tell you is when they were chasing the number, the dollars, right? That a lot of them didn't like what they became to have to do that. And so now you got it, but now you're not happy.
Yeah.
And so to be able to walk with people and like, hey, so what are your values? So there are two things that I do with clients. First off is I get them to do a vision. We do 10 years, 5 years, 2 years, 1 year, 6 months. And these are my individual clients, of course. And then I do their values. Like, what do you value? And I make sure they all know that it's very common. Like both of those things, if I have 20 clients, maybe one has done one of those things, and then maybe another 2 or 3 have done the values part. But a lot of times people don't think of it. If you think about,
they did that on their own before they met you,
right? And
Okay.
Usually it's because they've either been through some program or something, or a lot of tell you, yeah, I know what my values are. Okay, have you ever written them down? No, I haven't. And again, I want to make sure that if that's someone that's listening, it's normal.
Yeah.
We just don't think about those things, right? Because we join an organization and we assume their values of that organization,
right?
Like the military or college, and they'll tell you this is our mission, vision, these are our values, right?
Yeah.
And then we're like, okay, yeah, those values, and then we assume that identity, subconsciously and consciously.
Yeah.
But there's power when you know where you're going because you have a vision for it, and then you know your values, what you value. And now you can start making choices based on those two things, along with some other things too.
I would imagine it's got to be difficult for some people to separate and to understand what their values are if they are assimilating or adopting those of, okay, I went to the school, I went to this university, right. I'm employed by this company. Yeah. Well, wait a minute. Like, I know what my values are there because I'm employed, and this is the mission and the values of the corporation,
right.
And us as in a culture, and then it could be church and all that. But then I wonder if sometimes people step back and even analyze, well, what's important to me?
Right. Absolutely.
Right. I'm constantly adapting to these other things that are important to just succeeding in life.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And That's so good. So what I do is I listen a lot
Yeah.
to people and to my clients, and I'll see patterns. Like, Troy, you've talked about we've been meeting for 2 months, and you've talked about family almost every single session. That's not on your values. What do you think? What do you think about family? How do you like? And look at your values. Is this something should we consider this? What do you think? Right? And you're like, oh, wow, yeah, okay, yeah. And are you sure? I don't want to tell you what to do, but I look for patterns like that.
Yeah.
And there's also patterns with through coaching. We call it incongruency. So where we do it all the time. We're like, hey, I really want this. I really want this thing over here. I want to do this. I want this. I want to have Our Town podcast needs to be number one, the number one podcast. Awesome. Yeah, I love it too, Troy, and I want it to be number one too. Hey man, what are you doing tomorrow? Oh man, I'm gonna go and do this other thing that's way away from that, right?
Right.
Or what are you doing? What's your goal for 3 months down the road? Oh yeah, I'm gonna go do these other things that's not headed towards Our Town being number one.
Yeah.
Right. So I'll bring that up. Hey Troy, so you say you want this, but you're gonna go do this. Show me how those align.
Right.
Explain that to me. Help me see that. Because
It's
I'm your battle, but I'm walking with you.
It's interesting you say that because just using that as an example, right? Like I used to play a lot of golf, like a lot, and admittedly I kind of burned out to a certain degree, or it wasn't just burnout, but it was like, man, I really need to focus on this aspect of my career, which is about 5 years ago, which I did.
Yeah.
And sometimes you go through life, you have different interests.
Absolutely.
And sometimes you can still do something at the same level of passion, let's say the course of 20 years. And then other people might be like, I don't play pickleball, just as far as from like a hobby standpoint, right?
Right.
Pickleball, I might do some bowling. I'm going to try this. I'm going to try that. Well, my brother-in-law was here and, they come into the studio. He's like, wow, this is pretty impressive. When do you have time to do those other things? I'm like, I don't do those other things. This is something I feel like if I want it to be number one, then there's a lot of work to do.
Absolutely.
And I've decided to sacrifice. And the same thing, even when I played a lot of golf, I didn't do those other things because I wasn't fair then to my family.
Right.
Like I only really can have time for one hobby because I have an addictive personality. I'll be all in. I want to be the best. And there's no room for like two of those things in my life,
Yeah.
Because then that's not fair to them.
Right.
And so he was like, he kind of looked at me weird. I'm like, I'm up early. I'm go to bed late. There's a lot of work. I've created this monster, but that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So good.
Because otherwise it's going to be non-congruent.
Right. Yeah. Man, that's so good. And staying consistent to that. So I help a lot of people with confidence.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the things that I've seen with confidence is that they're letting themselves down over and over. And so, and this is something that even in my own life that I had faced, I learned early on. And luckily for me, you saw the picture earlier. You put it up when I was in school and skinny. I hated that. Right. So I was like,
being skinny?
Yeah.
Were you about 170 pounds?
6'5"? 185 pounds. Yeah.
All right.
When I graduated and played college basketball, and I could jump out of the gym, but I was, I played power forward because I was strong, but I could be moved by a 200-pound guy, a little easier. But then, so I was like, man, I wasn't comfortable in myself, in my own skin. And I'm glad I went through that because what that has done is made me really empathetic for other people, especially men. So when I meet men and I see them in that place, and I can identify because I've been there, and my heart goes out to them. And so that's been the pattern that I had throughout my life, and which led me to go into coaching and make this business out of it, so I can help men, and men coming out of that into a more confident. I'm not talking arrogant because there's insecurity. I think that. Yeah. And some of the things that you've said, I have addictive personality. What I love about when you said that is you have self-awareness. And there's a lot of people who don't have self-awareness because they don't like what they see. and which my heart goes out to people who don't like what they see, which is why I
Yeah.
do what I do. And so they don't want to look at that because they don't like it. They tell themselves some really, really awful things.
Mm-hmm.
And so they don't want to go and do that. You know, for you to say I have addictive personality, you have a level of confidence to where you can, that now you can go and take measures to not let that be a bigger thing.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the power of that self-awareness. And I love working with people who have that self-awareness, because it's a lot easier when we are walking through things for them to say, you know what, I've realized this about myself. One thing that I look for, though, is, are they focusing on that thing as a weakness? Because if they are, I don't want them to do that. I want them to focus on the strengths and their gifts. But you acknowledge those, but you don't focus on those, because those become, what you're giving attention to, and you're not going to do the things that where you're strong.
Yeah.
Like what you're doing right now, and hopefully this message is resonating with one of your listeners, and maybe I'll help somebody who's in a bad place right now because of what you're doing by defeating that addictive personality.
I'll give a little bit of. I was listening to the episode where you talked about having mitral valve prolapse, MVP, and kind of peeling back the curtain a little bit and discussing, because that's something, even if you're not having a heart murmur now or some sort of palpitation, that it could happen at any point. Right. So everything you do in your day is to prevent that kind of episode. Right. It's probably either actively on your mind or subconsciously on your mind a lot.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mentioned that because I am a very the glass is half empty for a little bit. My first instinct is I can't do something. And I've always struggled with this. Even like anything I did in school, if an assignment was given, the first thought I have is, I'm not going to be able to do this. I'm not going to have enough time, or I'm not going to get a good grade.
Right.
And then I catch myself. It's kind of like sitting at a table at a restaurant, and your glass is there, literally half full, half empty, but you're going to get it refilled by the server at some point.
Right. Yeah.
And so then I catch myself, and then I start building myself up to realize, wait a minute, I can do this. Yeah. And I've always done this. Yeah. But I am a very much a doubting Thomas, negative at the outset of a lot of things.
Yeah.
And then it'll flip, and then I'll get super positive and excited about it.
Yeah.
But it's like it drives me nuts.
Right. Yeah. So much power in what you're saying. Like, again, going back to that self-awareness, you're like, I know this about myself. And what that gives you the ability to do, it gives you you can respond to that. You're taking responsibility for it. I'm wired this way.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to change what I can. What I can't, I'm going to take other actions. Right. And so good to that self-awareness. I'm like you, knowing I have mitral valve prolapse, there's a syndrome that comes with that. Mm-hmm. So I have to be careful because it'll send me into a spiral. I have anxiety. I forgot to tell you about this. I have anxiety disorder, things like that. So,
well, that's what you thought you were having. You thought you were having a heart attack, and it turns out you were having an anxiety attack.
Yeah.
When you went to the hospital,
Absolutely.
Right? They hook you up to the EKG machine, and like, well, actually, it's not a heart attack.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I went to the cardiologist, and they did the echocardio, whatever thing they do, and so that was a pretty cool experience. Never had one before, but. Came back and said, well, we have some good news and bad news. Good news is you didn't have a heart attack, but bad news is that you do have mitral valve prolapse, but it's mild. You don't need medication. I probably need to go back and get that checked, by the way.
Part of your physical?
Yeah. I haven't been in a while. But knowing I have that, I'm like, all right, well, got to change some things in my life, but I'm gonna do this. Also have sleep apnea.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
You are like a CPAP machine?
I do. Yeah.
Oh,
that's supposed to have been another video, but
has your wife gotten used to that?
She has. Yeah. My machine's very quiet. Okay. I'm claustrophobic. I'm severely claustrophobic.
Oh yeah.
So I have elevate to great, but I hate elevators. Like the box, right? Hate them. And so I have to, those type of fears, right? So I put on this mask. It only goes around my nose. I put on this mask at night to sleep, and I've taught myself to actually love it now because I get better sleep, good quality sleep.
You get some white noise, if you will. That probably helps.
Yeah. Yeah. But I need to tell more people about that kind of thing because they see me as
Right.
however they see me, and probably think I have it all together. But I'm like, I got to go plug into this thing every night. This is this CPAP, and if I forget it, I forgot it. And my daughter had a game in Atlanta, a volleyball game in Atlanta, and I forgot it. So we're in the hotel. I'm like, oh my gosh. So that was.
Then you're not. Then you're so used to it, and you probably can't sleep.
Right. Yeah. And so I have mild sleep apnea, I guess, but it's still, I still feel like I wake up feeling like I'm gasping
Really.
through the night. Yeah.
I think I want to go back to. I think you and I are similar, where when you empathize, with someone, and I am definitely the kind of person that, and I don't know if it's just because I'm the father and I've got 4 kids, and I will do anything for my kids. It's kind of like you would lay down your life for someone else, right?
Right.
Like I'm going to be the martyr,
Right.
right? If anyone should be sick, it should be me.
Right.
I don't want anybody else to suffer.
Yeah.
And I'm not exactly sure where that comes from, but there may be one instance in my life that I can maybe attribute it to, but I've always kind of been like that. I would rather me take on the pain or the suffering that someone else doesn't have to go through it. Mm-hmm. And I was kind of thinking about, like I was gonna joke around at the beginning, like this is I'm Kevin Hart and this is The Rock, because I'm actually a little bit taller than Kevin Hart. I think he's 5'2". I might be 5'4" on a good day, but I think that we all get teased. You might even have gotten teased for being 6'5".
I did. Well,
right?
Yeah, yeah. It comes out in different ways, right?
I mean, kids are just mean. It's like, really?
Yeah.
So you're short, you're gonna get teased. You're overweight, you're gonna get teased. You're too skinny, you get teased.
Yes.
Right.
I got teased for that for sure.
Being too skinny.
Yeah.
But then it carries forward. So then in life, and maybe I was on the teasing side because I was trying to deflect,
right,
at times, right, and make fun of someone else because
same.
I got tired of always being this, So if I could figure out how to turn it around,
right,
it'd make you feel good.
Yeah.
But then you get to a point, especially as you have kids and you see your kids go through things, or you were too mean to your siblings, and I've seen maybe would they be better off in life? Would they not have struggled as much if I just been more caring as a brother, more nice, not been so mean, whatever it is, where you just don't want to have a kid have to go through that.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Like every day kids go to school and not exactly sure what happens, but my kids, we're all the same height. So they go through the teasing, and sometimes they've come home in tears,
right.
And it just breaks your heart.
Yeah. Yeah.
You feel like you were that type in that too?
Yeah. And, that's something, to this day, and I don't know how long ago, it's been several years ago. Like I stopped teasing people about being short, like a long time ago. Right. Because, there's not much you can do about that. Right. And then eventually I stopped teasing people. If I joke with you, even my closest friends, if I joke with you, that means I like you. And I joke a lot. But my friends who are short, I do not do short jokes, right? and because of my past, I didn't get teased for being short because I was tall. I got teased for being skinny, and at the time, I didn't think there was anything I could do about it. And I changed that, right? Start working out, but if you're short, it's like, it's hard to. How are you going to get more height? It's not like it's something you can do for that, right? And I'm like, man, I just think that's awful.
Well, and it's all like, kids, we all do it. We're like, no one has control over most things.
Right.
Color of your hair.
Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah. Some people can grow a beard, some people can't.
Right.
Those things are all just genetic and whatever. But then the things that you can control, and not to say that somebody should pick on someone for that, but like if we could just not be mean on the things that nobody had any control over that.
Right. Right.
Maybe not even their name. Yeah. Their parents chose their name.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's just step back and think about this. Everyone was a baby at some point, right?
Right.
Now, the other things that they can control, okay, you shouldn't make fun of people, but those things, okay.
Yeah, you're close.
Maybe there's some license there, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Especially if you're from you better grow some thick skin if you're gonna live in Philly or Boston.
Yeah. Or New York.
Or New York. Because you will get torn up.
Absolutely. Yes.
So how do you choose, if I was to pull up your Instagram, you have how do you choose? Are you doing a weekly podcast,
Yes.
a weekly message?
Yes,
Now you have your clients, of
I
course,
do. Yeah.
but how are you going about choosing what your subject matter is going to be week to week?
Yeah, I do a content calendar, and it's based on. I do it based on. I have 5 buckets, 5 things, right? I have spiritual, mental, emotional, physical, and social.
Okay.
Those 5 areas, and I look at, and then I go in depth in those. I do spiritual. So on Mondays, I usually there's a topic like, it's drive. That was my latest group coaching program that I just launched, and we just started on Sunday. But drive, the program's called Driven. So I did one that Monday on drive, right? And drive versus ambition versus drive.
Okay.
Then on Wednesday was the spiritual, the Christian aspect of that,
Okay.
because that is a part of my life, and so I'm like, all right, so here it is for everyone, and then if you're a believer and you're a Christian, here's it from Scripture,
Right.
right? And so that's how I do that. So it's one topic a week, and I try to do it in a way to where it's going to be relatable to the people that I serve.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And then, do you have any really? You don't have to obviously give names, but do you have any really tough clients right now? Or is there some that you're really having to really work hard to come up with how you're going to help them?
Yeah. So, tough clients. I will say I don't think I have any tough ones right now. There's some that are going through some things, and I don't do counseling, right? But they still will talk to me about some hard things that they're going through, and so I will tell them, as they start talking, like, hey, so what are your thoughts about seeing a counselor for that? And then they'll give me their answer, and sometimes they do see counselors. But then I'm like, all right, so we walk from here going forward. What steps are we going to take tomorrow or tonight?
Yeah.
What steps are we going to take to, like, how do you want to feel? How do you want it to be? How do you want your life? And what can you respond to, and what action can you take? I will say the one thing when I'm doing a consultation for a client, there's 4 things that I do in my process. I look to see if they have a goal, and a lot of times they will, and then sometimes they won't. And the goal is for them to come up with a goal. And I do have something to say about goals too. I'll talk about that too. So do they have a goal? Do they know their reality? Right. So where are you right now? How are things right now? Sometimes people are right on with that, and then sometimes people are not. It's just, you're going through some stuff and you're like, oh my gosh, the world is crashing down. But you take a deep breath and you realize, okay, it's not crashing down as much as it feels, right? Because I just had all these things piled on me. If they don't have a goal, and the goal is to get a goal, coaching, that's fine. If they don't really in tune with their reality, because it's hard to read the label when you're in the bottle, right? So you don't fully know. That's okay too. What opportunities do you see going forward? This is another thing. Do you see any opportunities? If you don't, that's okay too. But the last one is will. Are you willing to do something hard?
Yeah.
To go get the thing that we're going to go after?
Yeah.
And if they're not, then, and sometimes it doesn't play out until we're a month down the road, and so if I don't see that it's beneficial, then we have a conversation about what we're going to do with our relationship.
Gotcha.
Can I go back to goals?
Of course.
Okay. So I'm very goals driven. I think it's important to know that goals are super important, but what's even more important than that is the mission. What's the overall mission? Where you're trying to go, and then you create goals within that mission, right? So there's a lot of talk out about goal. Like don't have goals aren't that important. Goals aren't that people, and then you got these other people like, oh, goals, it's all about goals.
The smart thing, right? When you create
Right.
the goals, yeah.
Right. And it's almost like like in Christian faith, there's the works versus faith,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, there's this and then there's this, and you got your people divided, and it's like, well, it depends on where you are, right? If you're more in the works, then you need to where's your faith? And then if you're more in the faith, where's your works? It's both. It's goals and mission. It's like, what's your mission? Where are you trying to go? And then have goals within that. Because if you don't have that and you just have goals, all you have is a checklist.
Yeah.
You still may not end up anywhere. You completed those goals, but where'd you really get? So I think that's important. I really wanted to make that clear that, if you hear a lot about goals, cool, but what's the mission, right? If you hear about mission, no goals, well, okay, so you know where you want to go, but how are you going to measure how you get there? Goals.
That's a great segue or related to to Roger Kitchen Jr. I don't know if you've met him yet. Power Mental Performance.
No, I haven't.
I just put out a clip 2 days ago. I've had him on. I'm gonna have him back on next month. But he's talking about process-driven results or the process mindset and the results mindset. And so he's a power lifter.
Yeah.
And he's now has a business where he goes and he's helping athletes with the mental side of performance.
Right.
The controllables and uncontrollables.
Right.
We even talked you lift weights.
Yes.
If you were to compete in that, I was asking him because I was having a hard time wrapping my head around the uncontrollables.
Right.
He's like, well, you might go to a gym that, you're used to a certain setup and the setup's just different. The equipment's different.
Right.
It's more humid. It might be at a higher altitude.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
There's all these things you can't control. So then it's learning how to block that out or not have that affect you, and you focus on what you can control.
That's right.
But he was talking about it's 80%. The people who do really well are those who really focus on the process.
Right.
And you write down your goals. You know what your goals are, but you're not so fixated on them.
Yeah.
You get so fixated and involved in the process that leads to that. You check in on your goal every now and then. But you get religious about the execution of your process.
Right.
And then ultimately, more times than not, you're going to be successful in meeting your goals.
Right. Absolutely. The journey. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Enjoy the journey.
You got to enjoy the journey. Embrace the suck, right? All these things you hear.
Yeah. My launch driven the group coaching program, there's things that ultimately it was successful. Right. And big thanks to Erica, All Things Madison.
Oh yeah.
Love working with her. She's so good. The thing about driven is, it happened to be successful, but along the way I'm like, oh my gosh, wow. I mean, there's some things in there I would consider failures, but I'm so thankful for them because now when I launch it again, those things won't, a lot of those won't happen. I want to say all will go away. We'll see, but a lot of those won't happen. I've learned a lot through it.
Yeah.
And so, it's really realizing, and that's the joy part of it too. It's like, hey, yeah, it was close, but it ultimately it was good. And I want to say this too about confidence is I was reminding someone a few months ago about it, and I think around the same time, a few days later, Ed Milet came out and said it too. But it's like I was telling this person, a lot when I was super skinny, and I wanted to get big. What I had to do is I had my vision of what I wanted to look like, but I wasn't there. I wasn't going to be there for a while, so I had to disconnect myself from the results. I had to focus on the journey and the process, and then I got wins out of just being consistent in the process. So if I showed up, like you were talking about your run, if I showed up, that was going to be a win. It showed up and did it, right? Sometimes even showing up, count that as a win too.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't do that, and they're like, well, I didn't get the result, so this is a big loss. It's like, no, give yourself credit for showing up and actually going through the steps. And then what can you learn from, you didn't get the result. Okay. So what did you learn from it? Because a lot of times you may not get the result.
Yeah. I know you're interested in playing more golf, right?
Yes.
And I will tell you, not that I had I did compete a lot in golf, and golf was one of those things where I finally learned, look, you're not going to always have a career round.
Right.
It's just not going to happen.
Right.
And there's a lot of things outside your control.
Right.
You can literally hit a perfect putt, but there may be a piece of fertilizer that knocks your ball slightly off course, right, and doesn't go in. And there's all kinds of things that can happen. You hit a great drive, but it lands on a tree root, and it sprays into the woods.
Yeah.
What? Some weird things will happen in competitive golf. But what I did learn was just keep practicing, keep trying, keep competing, and every now and then, right? And this is not professional golf, right? Even just an amateur golf, and you also have to take that into account. Okay, you still have a job,
Yeah.
You only can practice when you can practice. But I knew that statistically, the probability was I was going to have a great round 25% of the time.
Right. Yeah.
And I really learned to like be okay with that.
Right.
Or even if I went to was going to compete, I would do practice rounds, and a lot of times I would shoot terribly.
Yeah.
But I also knew the pressure wasn't there.
Right.
I'm actually one who will rise up to pressure
Yes.
when it's like game day.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
know everyone's there. Some people rise to that. Some people it crushes them.
Right.
But I usually don't play well if I'm just with a buddy.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Yeah. Yeah.
But when it's like it's game day and you've done all this preparation, somehow I tend to like just play better.
Yeah. I'm with you on that.
And so I just kind of like just started realizing even in the process, don't expect it like every single time
Yeah.
that it's going to be incrementally better.
Right. Yeah.
But the fact is, it is incrementally better because you're doing everything because golf is tough.
Right.
And there's all these crazy things that can happen. It could rain one day. It could be brutally hot the next.
Yeah.
They forgot to cut the grass. Like there's just all these things.
Yeah.
And that made me a better golfer.
Yeah.
And it made me a better competitor.
Yeah. So good.
And I know that you use a lot of different things in life to create these analogies, right? On the things that you're, even in mitral valve prolapse, you talked about like the blinkers in your car.
Yeah.
Talk about that. What did you learn about that?
Yeah.
That was similar to one's body.
Yeah. Wow. I can't believe and I actually do remember that now. That was I didn't even know you were gonna bring all this up.
Hey,
this
man.
is good. I love it.
This is what I do.
Yeah. So so going, my body, because of the way my heart valve malfunctions, it throws off, there's all these other things. And it made me think about, one of my cars had a blinker, like the bulb blown in the blinker. This was years ago. So I don't know if it still happens or not. I don't keep cars that long anymore. I need to. But anyways, so I would put my blinker on and it was like this fast blink. And I'm like, what is this? Right. And then I realized, the blinker is out. This is it telling me it's throwing off. The electric system is saying there's an error here, right? No bulb is here. So the blinker is going to blink really fast inside in the car. And so I was like, okay. So yeah, my body was telling me, my nervous system was reacting to the fact that my heart valve is malfunctioning. And so it's like, all right, yeah, it's like the blinker in my car. So yeah, good.
Well, I think that the other thought I had, I always look too, like natural law, right? I mean, I'm a believer.
Yeah.
And I believe God obeys natural law.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of clues that we can learn about the nature of God and one another through things that happen.
Yes.
Right. So there's tons of analogies and stuff that you can kind of keep learning and relearning.
Right.
But I was thinking about how even just, Brian's is a coach, and there's all kinds of other coaches out there. Mm-hmm. For some reason, physics came to mind. I struggled in physics in high school because I felt like I just didn't connect with the teacher.
Right. Yeah.
But if I went on YouTube now and I happened across, an instructor I liked, I could probably learn something about physics.
Right.
So sometimes it's just that delivery.
It is.
It's the subject matter. Many of us are in a way regurgitating information.
Right.
But the idea is though that you might have the ability to really impact someone.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe they've had other coaches, but they haven't had Brian Robinson.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And then maybe for some it won't work out with Brian Robinson. They need to get somebody else.
Right. Absolutely.
Right. But it's like, there's just that aspect too of we can all learn something from someone.
Yeah.
Right. And some people can be more experts in other things.
Right. It's such a good point. Glad you shared that. And there's times in my life too where you're in these situations and like you said with your physics teacher, and you realize that person's delivery just wasn't matched well for you.
Yeah.
And the things that came from that, possibly you're probably, I don't know what you were thinking, but I would imagine that you're like, man, what's wrong with me? Mm-hmm. Right. This is not working out. Am I this, that, and whatever else? Right. All because that delivery wasn't right for you.
Yeah.
And it's a great point. Cause I think about that. First of all, I'm in a really good place right now where, and I've been this for a while, where people just can't, some people are like, are you really is this real? And I'm like, yeah, it's me. One of my clients, I over delivered for him. I don't think it's over delivery, but it would be considered. It's outside of our our coaching agreement, got him some connections. He's like, man, I just got to ask you, why did you do that? You know, I didn't make any extra money off of it or anything. I'm like, well, you're probably not gonna believe this, but I just love doing that. I love like seeing good people win. And if I can bring two good people together, I'll back out of the way and let you talk. And that brings me a lot of joy, but I just think it's the right thing to do. And there's so many more people that need help and these two people coming together, someone else can get served from that. And maybe it's saving their life in some way. And so that's how I think. Mm-hmm. And to know there's other coaches that are doing this, and that if I can have a part in training other coaches to do this and go save someone's life, because I'm not the person that's right to deliver it, to help them walk through it, but that other person is, then man, I'm just honored, and it's a blessing. But that's how I think. So I don't really see competition, because I just see that other coach. Now I will say this. I do, because I care about the people who need our help as coaches. Yeah. If there's a coach that's like spoon feeding their client all the time, and they're not like what I do, and my clients will tell you this, I think all of them will tell you this, is even when it's uncomfortable, I'm going to ask you some questions. You're going to ask me, Brian, what should I do here? And I'm going to say, Troy, where are you leaning right now? Mm-hmm. Tell me that. And it kills me, because I told myself I will always answer a question. Yeah. Right. I always want to answer your question. But in coaching, I don't want to give you the answer. I want to show you techniques to where when I'm not with you, you can coach yourself.
Well, right? you're also going to encourage them to create an accountability team. Right. Right. Absolutely. So a coach that maybe not as good as, no, you're going to hold them accountable. Right. It's not necessarily a negative. Right. I mean, how bad do you want it? Yeah. Right. You hired me. That's right. And I'm telling you, because I can't be around all the time. Right. Right. They're not paying you 24/7. Right. But a skill to learn, so that when they graduate out of needing the services of B-Rob, who's in their accountability team? Right. Right. What are those principles that will carry on? Right. And you want a coach that's going to hold you accountable to that. Absolutely. Right. Yeah. We actually dive into that. Right. We dive into, once we explore, someone like you're really self-aware. A lot of clients, sometimes they don't come to me really self-aware, but we get there for the most part. And now it's like, all right, so these are your strengths and your weaknesses, right? Who do you need around you to build you up in the places where you're weak? So now it's like the A-team, right? Everyone had their thing, their strength. They also had their weaknesses too, but the other member's strength really stood up in the place of that other person's weakness, and as a unit, they function. They went and got success for whatever mission they were on. So you're the same, and a lot of times we don't think about our values. We don't think about where we're going. So therefore, the people we're around, even though you can love them, but sometimes they're not good for where you're trying to go. Yeah, and then we get into the loyalty. Loyalty is big for me, but man, if I go out here and I'm doing this coaching thing, Our Town Podcast needs to be a number one because of the value that you bring and the people that you serve. My coaching needs to be out there so people can see, so I can help people and save some lives. And so I have to think about that and think about who do I have around me that will help that process. And the people who won't, I got to just create distance in between us because there's lives that need to be helped. Let's talk a little bit about going back to what you were saying about just helping someone. It's outside the contract or the agreement. Yeah. But, I think to summarize what's going on in your mind, it's just the right thing to do, right, for that person. Right. You might, whether you were seeking anything or not, I think, it's karma. It's, if it's the right thing to do, then at some point it might come back to you. Right. It might be 5-10 years down the road that one of those in those two parties do something, to reciprocate that gesture. Yeah. Or if not, but how do you feel about, it's kind of like, but sometimes I struggle with the nice guy, finishes last. Right. Or sometimes I'm probably just like you. I'm going to be that nice guy. Yeah. I don't know if I can be a mean guy, at the same time, it bothers me if I feel like these other people that I would say never have those qualities seem to succeed more than I do.
Yeah.
And success is whatever it is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I struggle with that at times.
Yeah. When you brought my picture up, right? And I told you, hey, you see all these things and they all look good, but what people don't get to see is I was running from stuff, right? Things, getting away from the neighborhood and getting away from temptations and things like that. It's the same too, and it could be that those people, maybe they do sleep well at night. The people who are doing whatever, all the things to get a certain thing. I will tell you this, for me, it's every action creates momentum, right? Action creates momentum. Inaction actually is an action too, as far as my opinion, and maybe that's my opinion, but I'm like, hey, if you're doing nothing, you're still doing something, right? Because you're not taking a step that way.
Yeah.
And we don't really sit still anymore, especially at our age, right?
Yeah.
We're either moving back or we're moving forward. But for me, I always tell my clients this too. I get to define my character, and I'm not sitting here acting like I've never done anything wrong, because I have, and I try my best to go make those right. But I will tell you this, is that I get to define my character. So what that means is if I'm going to do this thing, I get to exercise my character while I'm doing that. If I'm over delivering, or if I have a blended family, right? So I have an ex-wife, and my wife has an ex-husband, and so we have kids I have a daughter from my previous marriage. She has two sons from hers. Well, my ex has remarried, as well as her ex too. And they're still involved in all, in the kids' lives and things like that. So on Father's Day, what I did is I sent my ex-wife's husband a Happy Father's Day, and I sent my wife's ex-husband a Happy Father's Day, and I did that because they are good. Like my daughter's stepdad is providing a good home for her when she's at their house. My stepson's dad is doing things with them. He's showing up in their lives, right? So it might be weird, but for me, I don't have to worry about anybody else. This is what I do, because I get to define my character. And I sent them both Happy Father's Day. Thank you so much for what you do for my daughter.
Yeah.
You're a good dad to your sons, right? And they both responded back with really kind messages. So anyways, I get to define that. And one of the things I like to do, if I have the opportunity, because the client is the boss. But if I get a chance to say, no judgment, a whole space, no judgment. What do you want to do, Troy, in this situation? Mm-hmm. Well, I want to go do this. Why don't you? How is that exercising the character how you want to show up? And a lot of my clients, man, they get to have that space and that permission. They get to give themselves permission to do things that society might tell you, why would you do that? That's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, even though I have CPAP, I sleep very well at night.
There you go. Yeah, that's the test I often use a lot.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, hey, that person still has to go to. Somebody can do something wrong. Yeah. Someone comments on it, and I say, well, maybe they don't sleep at night.
Right.
They got to take that to their pillow.
Right.
It's on them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, this is going to be a really sophomoric comment, but do you sometimes forget that you're 6'5" and
I do,
and you're, you could probably, I don't know these other guys, these stepfathers or whatever, but you could probably, crush them. Do they fear you physically? And you might sometimes forget that.
I don't want.
I'm not saying that they shouldn't respond and you have a good relationship, but it's also like, oh man, this guy, Brian could kill me.
I don't think that's the case, and I don't want them to feel that way. And there's a majority of the people I don't want to feel that way. Yeah. I consider myself a sheepdog, and there are some wolves out there. I want them to feel that way, the wolves, right? Yeah. But these guys, I don't want them to feel that way. And ultimately, I do forget I'm 6'5". I take pictures with people, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize I'm that much taller and bigger than people. I have a ritual that I do in the mornings, a way to prepare how I want to show up in the world. I think about this every day, how I'm going to show up in the world. By the time I hit the gym super early, and by the time I hit the gym, I'm smiling, right? Because I'm grateful that I get to go. There's people who
Yeah.
can't walk. I get to walk in, and I'm grateful for that. And I also know that there's stereotypes out there. I'm a big guy. I can look intimidating. I want to take that down. I don't want people to be intimidated. I want to be welcoming.
Yeah.
And then there is a side to me, right?
Yeah.
That only a certain few people will ever get to see. That and hopefully that part never comes out. But and I try my best not to have that Brian come out.
Yeah.
But when that Brian comes out, that's the sheepdog. That's not good.
I was gonna say, it's like Bruce Banner trying to keep the Hulk inside, right?
Yeah.
I think I did actually think about this. Like, I wonder what those moments are when we all have them,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Where you normally try to keep yourself really composed,
Yeah.
but every now and then, right? There's something that happens,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Let's talk about your brand,
Okay.
the hat.
Yeah. I'm so glad you brought that up.
No insignia.
Yeah.
It matches, right? And
Yeah.
if I pull up your Instagram, it's you've obviously a lot of care in matching.
Yes.
So I have a few questions on it.
Okay.
Number one, where did that come from?
Yeah.
Was that just a hey, I want to brand myself and no one's doing this and I'm going to do this?
It had nothing to do with anyone else.
Okay.
It's like, how do I want to show up? Me personally, this is just me. I don't want to wear someone else's brand. This is a FlexFit hat. I do want a sponsorship from FlexFit, so if we can hashtag them.
Okay.
I love your hats. I've been wearing them for a long time, but this is me. And these shirts, I know what I'm going to wear for the week. By Sunday, I know what I'm going to wear for the whole next week. And my jeans and sport coat and my polo shirt. This is my style, and I am happy with it. I did have some feedback from people and some friends. I know they care about me. They're like, "Hey, you ever thought about not coaching with your hat because it covers up some of your forehead and maybe it's not as welcoming?" So I'm like, I considered it, right? And I'm like, what should I do here? So what I did is I went and asked my clients. So the guys who were paying me money, I'm like, "Hey, what do you think about my hat?" Yeah, and they're like, "We love it. We love that." I have had clients, people come to me like, "Hey, we're coaching with you because you don't look stuffy." And again, anyone who dresses up, I'm not saying anything.
Yeah.
Like we talked about earlier, there's different people. We're in America. You have choices, right?
Yeah.
So some people may not choose me, but they don't tell me, and that's okay. But this is my style. I'm comfortable.
Yeah.
And,
You probably save a little bit of money by having it not branded.
right.
Just being plain.
Yeah, I do.
And if you look at the screen, sometimes you do you have this color, the same hat, same shirt color, which has got to be a little bit tough to match.
Yeah.
You have to take the hat to the store and to pick the shirt or vice versa.
I've been lucky.
Have you?
I'm like, order the hat, get it in. I'm like,
okay.
And these are BCG shirts. So these this is a $10 shirt.
Those are from, okay, hold on. What's the name of that? Hold on. I know this.
Starts with an A?
Yeah, it does. Oh, gosh. It's not Dick's.
No.
Academy.
You got
The
it.
BCGs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Found
There you
these
go.
shirts. I like the length of them. So with my tall body, this is a 3X.
3X?
Yeah.
I actually might have a 3X t-shirt for you before you leave.
Oh, nice.
But I'm just looking at some of these. Kind of flippantly, I've seen people that have had where maybe they have some scars in their head, or they just aren't ready to embrace the receding hairline.
Yeah. I have some of that.
Do you?
Yeah.
But let me see. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. There you go. There he is.
Yeah.
But
That's not a problem for me though.
But at the same time, you bring up a really good point, and I have talked about this a few times where I used to be a hiring manager, interviewed a lot of people.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I wanted that person when they came in to be interviewed to be comfortable, and people when they're not comfortable in their clothes, it oozes out of them.
Right.
They're not comfortable.
Right.
And they're going to be awkward.
Right.
And so I usually, a couple things. One, I always want to interview them at least twice, sometimes 3 times.
Yeah.
Because the second time and the third time, they're going to dress down. They're going to feel like, okay, I'm not wearing the suit again because I never wear suits other than funerals, and maybe they go to church twice a year. This is up in Virginia. People don't go to church. And then Down here's a different story.
Right.
But they're sweating and they're just not comfortable.
Yeah.
You know, and they're somewhat tripping through the normal. They've rehearsed all their answers. Like, no, man, this is I want the real person.
Yeah.
Bring them back, and now they're a little bit more comfortable because
Yeah.
they've spent an hour with me before. They
Right.
understand my style, and now then they dress down.
Yeah.
And then the third time they might even dress down even more. And like,
Yeah.
look, if you're a software developer, wear jeans.
Yeah.
Just come from wherever you're at. Just come from work.
Right.
Because that, to me, that's the way that's my experience with a software developer.
Yeah.
Now, if you're a business developer, I'm going to expect something different.
Right.
And I can tell when you're comfortable in your clothes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, I think it's awesome when you get to a point. There's another guy I know that owns a company, wears a hat. That's his thing.
Yeah.
And like, that's cool.
Yeah. Well, I'm with you. I love it.
And your wife loves it.
Yeah.
Okay.
She likes my bald head too, but yeah. Yep. She loves it.
Now I think some of your branding has changed a little bit over time. I was listening to some of your episodes and some of the handles.
Yes.
Walk me through that a little bit. What have you learned in being a business owner?
Yeah.
And being very reliant on social media.
Right.
What have you learned in that process of trying to get to be known out there on all these channels?
Yeah. Yeah. I think you might be referring to this is B-Rob.
Yeah.
For a while, because I was trying to figure out, where I was going to land as far as and I think at the time I was doing purpose and confidence coaching. I was doing all types of stuff, and I realized, man, I need to really focus in and be excellent at this niche, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I still stand behind that. And then it goes deeper. I think you said earlier you want to talk about maybe other parts of my business and things like that. So yeah, I explored a little bit, and some of it is risky, taking a chance, but ultimately my clients, and actually Success Coach came from two clients. One was out of state, one was here, one was out of state, and they both in the same week. It was like, oh my gosh, these two don't know each other, they still never met. And they both were like, yeah, I was talking to so-and-so. I was like, yeah, my Success Coach. I'm like, huh, interesting. Right. And then another one, I don't know if he's in Maryland or somewhere, but he was like, maybe California, but he was like, yeah, it was my Success Coach. And I'm like, huh, this is two in like a week. So I'm like, so I asked a couple friends, asked my wife, and I ultimately went with that. Right. And so I went with that and just really trying to dial it in. Here's the thing. We talked about consistency, branding. You're going to brand yourself no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times people don't, even if you're inconsistent, that becomes your brand is all over the place, right? If you're inconsistent.
Right.
People people want stability overall. Even if we don't know it, we do, and that's why you can put something out and people don't really, people are like, huh. You do have some impulsive people that may react to it, but for the most part, people want stability. Whether it's your customers, your future business partners, people who want to partner with you. So people will watch. And you won't get that feedback, but they're watching, and some will push against it, and they're like, huh, is this real? Because they don't want to attach themselves to you. They don't want to hire you to help them with this thing that's so important to them without knowing you're going to stay, right? So consistency is super important for you, right? To not let yourself down, but also for the others, especially if you're in a business. So branding is super important. I did stretch out. I was red shirts and orange shirts. That's not really my thing, but so I was like, that's me being dangerous.
Yeah.
When it comes to my brand,
Red and orange.
Yeah, but everything's strategic. Everything's thought out. My blue.
Yeah.
It's very. I did the research with it, so. Even my logo, the circle with the BR, the circle there. So you'll see more about how that's going to come into play here next year. So it's all intentional.
Yeah. It is. It's interesting how I always apologize. This comes from my mother's side of the family. We're always very apologetic. I always apologize to guests when I don't realize, because maybe we hadn't connected yet online or something, right? And as soon as you connect to someone, this world opens up, and you realize, oh my gosh, here's B Rob has 1,000 followers on Instagram and 7,000 subscribers on YouTube, and how was I not aware? But that's just the way social media is. I mean,
Right.
sometimes you have to make that connection, and then you enter that world.
Right.
But do you get frustrated when you feel like, man, I've really canvassed this area? How are people more not aware of who I am?
Not yet. I'm not. I'm very thankful for, like you were saying, the 1,000 followers. And I know there's people with way more and there's people with less. So I'm very thankful for what I have. I think it's a blessing. And I'm not there yet where I'm, if someone doesn't know me, sometimes I'm like, how do you confuse me with, like sometimes people are like, are you, or, oh yeah, and, oh, I didn't, okay, yeah. They met me before and they don't remember. I'm like, I think I stand out, but maybe I don't, right? Yeah. But I'm not frustrated by that yet. Maybe I will be, but no, I still feel like I have some things to do, to get there. Yeah.
I heard something interesting from a guy. I don't know if you know Bill Simmons. I think he was a journalist, a sports journalist up in Detroit. I think he covered. I think he's was a Detroit guy, and so a lot of these journalists, well before podcasts, right? Like Mike Wilbon and Tony Kornheiser are good examples of two guys from Washington Post. They've had PTI on ESPN for years, right? And that could, there was a TV show that, or Howard Stern that arguably now would be considered like also a podcast,
right? Yeah,
but like they're like, and so Bill Simmons is that kind of guy. A lot of these sports writers end up being contributors on shows, and then they get their own shows. And but anyway, he was making a comment because I guess he's now has a company and has like a family of podcasts. And they were asking him, hey, well, are you happy with like these numbers? And he's like, I don't even look at the numbers. He's like, it's more about our people are just aware.
Yeah.
And I'm finding that I'm taking more comfort now. It's not just about numbers.
Right.
But somehow people are going to be, because we only have so much time in the day.
Right. Right.
And I know you said you're a podcast enthusiast, right? But,
yeah.
And I look at sometimes my numbers literally probably are down because there's a lot of podcasts. There's a lot of good content out there.
Yeah.
And unless you're kind of engaging this fanatic listener who's going to listen to every episode or every clip, that's the reality is that's not going to be the case.
Yeah.
You look at your own life where do you spend your time and your attention?
Right.
And sometimes I might get big into ebooks or I might get big into podcasts, but not all the time.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's more of just this, is there just a general awareness that that's there?
Yeah.
I may never even watch an episode of Joe Rogan, but I'm aware.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it kind of really helped me in a way to like not like consider success always in just what's those tangible metrics.
Right. Yeah.
And it's just kind of
So
more
good.
of the word of mouth. If Joe Carlucci mentions to me, hey, you need to talk to Brian Robinson, I've known that for over a year.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until just now that I'm doing the research and I have you on the show, but I've known who you are.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Where I think that's just as much. It's very hard to measure.
Right.
But it's like, and I think that's the byproduct of consistency.
Yes.
Right.
It is.
And clients who refer you.
Right.
Right. Or speak of you.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, man. And I'm a big fan of Our Town podcast. And you know,
thanks.
Joe's like, hey, I'm on this podcast. And I'm like, really? What? Yeah. So if I do get frustrated with numbers, if I see like one of your posts on Instagram, snippet, and I'm like, only this many likes? Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Like, what is up? And I'm like, I don't want him to quit. So let me make sure, because, and I really love, I hope there's more people. I think there's more people like that. I know there's more people like that.